Ted, let's start this discussion with a question, Ted. Where do we think OU should be ranked heading into the season? You think about all the factors 10-3 a season ago, improvement, large improvement from Venable's first year, lost a lot off the offense, including all five starters on the offensive line and your veteran starting quarterback. Dylan Gabriel's now at Oregon. You've got a ton of talent coming back on the defense. You've got a new offensive coordinator. You've got a new defensive coordinator, even though that situation's a little different. No one was fired. So it's not like people were let go because either side of the ball was underperforming. It's just a lot of change. So what do you think, man? Where do you think OU should be ranked in some of these top 25s?
Well, it's hard, because what's the goal of this ranking? Are you trying to guess where Oklahoma's going to finish the season when everything is wrapped up next year? Where is OU going to be? Or is it like, what do they deserve after last year and heading? Are we pre-staging? If we're pre-staging, I think you probably mid-teens between like the 13 and 16 range.
I think that that's fair. And one of the reasons I believe you put them somewhere in the mid teens, maybe high teens, is because of the defense. The defense, I think everyone looks at what they're bringing back, some of the pieces that they've added, especially with Dominic Williams now in the interior of that defensive line. And the expectation is for that defense to be really good. Now, we won't know if it's elite until we see him get out there on the field. But I think with the expectation of the defense being really good, that elevates OU in the conversation over a lot of other teams. If you've got one of the best defenses in the SEC, you're going to have a chance in pretty much every game. Now, the offense is it's a different discussion, right? There's a lot of uncertainty, and that uncertainty starts with Jackson Arnold. But I do think when people are putting these top 25s together, and remember, these are post-spring top 25s. There will probably be a post-summer workout top 25 and then the preseason top 25. We love top 25 lists. But you do have to wonder how the schedule will affect how people rank them in these top 25s. Ted, because I think it's only natural to look at OU's schedule and go, oh man, I don't want to put them too high because they've got the possibility of losing a bunch of games, and I don't want to look like an idiot for putting them so high in my preseason top 25.
Yeah, it's not an easy exercise because like I've talked about previously, I think you have Georgia and then you have a big group of I'm talking SEC here. You got Georgia, then you got a really big group that I think could beat one another each and every week, and Oklahoma plays a lot of schools from that list. So, I mean, I don't know. They should receive, if everyone's going to talk about how difficult the schedule is, well, they should receive some type of benefit from that, as everyone in SEC's past has previously, right? Is that how this works?
It's either it goes one or two ways, right? People will be very reluctant to put them in the top 25, or people will go, oh man, look at that schedule. Oklahoma, they deserve to be in here somewhere with how that schedule looks. We'll see how it shakes out for them. But if I was putting one together, I don't think the exercise is supposed to be, okay, what am I projecting this team to finish? I think you look at the roster, you look at a year ago, you look at the returning production, you look at some of the biggest question marks, and then you go, okay, I think this is one of the 15, 17, 18 best teams in the country. I think it's probably a top 10, top 12 most talented roster in the country. If some of the question marks, most notably O-line and quarterback, if those end up getting answered in a very positive way, then maybe Oklahoma's better than that with what they could have defensively. But you could also look at this OU schedule and go, hey, 7-5 is very much in play here. I don't want to put them in my top 15. I would understand a voter thinking that, but I don't think that's supposed to be the exercise, in my opinion. I think you're just supposed to look at the teams and go, okay, who's got the best squad? Who's got the best roster? But
Yeah.
I say that's just not real life. You have to factor the schedule in, I guess.
There's a balance. There's definitely a balance. And I think that's why everyone's preseasons lists are a little bit different. I think because not everyone weighs it the same. I guess the formula is a little bit different. I do think it's interesting because you mentioned that Oklahoma's probably one of the 10 or 12 most talented teams in the country. And I agree with that. But think about how different that statement is if you were to say it's a 10 or 12 most talented team in the country. They've got an elite defense. And how much more talented are they if Jackson Arnold himself is one of the best, ends up being like one of the best quarterbacks in the country? As the hope has been their number one quarterback in his class. Like, if you've got that quarterback and that defense, it all of a sudden elevates the rest of that talent quite a bit.
I do think that whether it's right or wrong, it was one game. I think OU would be getting discussed differently if he would have played really well in the bowl game. I do.
Which is crazy because
It was one game.
it was one game and it was really like 10 minutes of one game.
There were a
We've
lot of
got to,
mistakes in those 10 minutes, but
there was. I'm saying, like, if that play doesn't reverse and go the other direction, we go punch one in. Like, that game's a blowout. Not only do we not lose, it's a blowout. So I do think a lot is hanging on that, and rightfully so. Like, I mean, you are what the results say you are. But I mean, I do think it's interesting that we have a really wide range, and I think everyone understands that. But not just by the schedule, but by a guy like Jackson Arnold. I mean, just plain and simple, if he comes out and has a really, really good season, like, the ceiling for Oklahoma is incredibly high.
I think the ceiling is the ceiling win the SEC. I don't know. That feels very, very lofty. Is it the craziest thing I've ever heard? No, but I'm kind of to the point where I'm just going to need to see OU go beat Georgia.
Yeah,
That's just
for
yeah.
sure.
So I think the ceiling you're probably thinking, hey, host a college football playoff game. I think every OU fan would say yes, sign me up for that right now.
Yeah.
But this is something else I was thinking. We'll get to a couple of these top 25s, Ted, but do preseason rankings, do they feel like they matter as much as they used to with the expanded playoff?
Um, I still think they do.
I'm with you because your preseason ranking, it shapes how voters view you early in the season. And people typically, if they rank you high to begin the year, they want to see you succeed. It's human nature. Like, hey, I rank these teams really high. I want them to win games. I want to continue to rank them high because I ranked them high to start the year. It's just whether that's how it should work or not. That does play a
Yeah.
small factor, I would say.
I think the best thing about it is, which we already know, college football is a unicorn sport. There's nothing else like it in the world. And it's kind of, it's almost like not your rooting guide, but there's you can't, the average fan can't keep up with 130 Division One teams. tell me the 25 that I need to keep my eye out for, right? I mean, that's kind of what it is. It's like it's everyone's homework, I guess, to some degree for the upcoming season, just to try and prioritize out there what you need to look at, who's on your schedule, who's not, because there's a lot happening in college football, and you have to try and like where'd the big swaps of rosters go, who gained a bunch of people, who didn't. It kind of helps you, like, to some degree, stack all of that into a manageable list of things you can actually look at.
Yeah. So let's look at a couple. So multiple outlets have released post spring top 25s. Let's start with one from On Three by Jesse Simonton. He's got Oklahoma at number 17 in his post spring top 25. Here's what he says: the Sooners have the look of a potential playoff spoiler in 2024. Brent Venables' program has been overshadowed by Texas all offseason, but OU boasts an offense that should be one of the SEC's best, even with first-year starting quarterback Jackson Arnold and a completely new starting five along the line. They brought in SMU's Branson Hickman to start at center and landed a key defensive piece in TCU tackle Dominic Williams. The schedule is gnarly, so it'll be imperative for the new look OL to come together immediately this summer. I think my biggest takeaway from what Jesse said is the schedule is gnarly. That's a
Mm-hmm.
great way to describe it. But I I think that's a pretty fair assessment of where OU is at. Now, I thought it was interesting you didn't mention any of the big names returning on defense, but talking about transfer portal guys is a little more fun typically. So I get it. But OU at 17, that feels pretty fair from the guys over at On Three.
Yes. I mean, I think it's a fair ranking, and I'm not shocked at it. I also am very confident that there are not 16 better teams in college football than Oklahoma. And that's kind of how this thing works, right? It's like some of it you've earned to a certain degree, but there's not 16 teams better than Oklahoma. As I see it. I mean, I guess I could be wrong about that, and this team doesn't come together, but I mean, that's just kind of about the range that you're going to land in. There's some hesitancy because of the people that have exited, all the things that we've talked about. That's probably the high range of what you're going to see.
So I have anytime I'm looking at basically any list now, I look for how many SEC teams there are.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if I used to do that with Big 12 teams, but I find myself doing it every single time with
Well, you did
SEC
it with Big
teams.
12 teams, but it was always three. It's about where
Exactly.
you'd see it.
OU, Texas, Kansas State.
And then some mix of someone else.
But looking at On Three's post spring top 25, you've got Georgia at 1, Texas at 3, Alabama at 4, Ole Miss at 6, Missouri at 10, Tennessee at 14, LSU at 16, and Texas A&M at 23. Ted, we keep bringing this up. You look at OU's schedule. We've got number 3, number 4, number 6, number 10, number 14, and number 16 all on the conference schedule. This,
Yep.
we're going to continue to bring it up. This is why OU schedule is unanimously considered one of the toughest in the country. These post spring top 25 lists, and we'll go through a couple more of them. It paints a picture of just how difficult it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's what has excited us. It's what makes the move to the SEC great. I mean, I still believe, and maybe we get into the season and this thing feels just like a relentless beatdown. I don't think that's going to be the case, because all of that being said, and I agree, there's in this top 10, there's 4 of the top 10 teams are on our list, 5 in the top 15. That's just this list. I still believe that we can beat everyone on our schedule, though. I mean, do I think we'll beat everyone on our schedule? No, I don't think that we're going to beat everyone on our schedule. I think we'll drop a couple of games, but I think we're as likely to lose to Texas as we are to lose to Ole Miss, and I think we're as likely to beat Texas or Ole Miss as we are to beat. Yeah, it's just it's all kind of right there. I don't see anyone on our schedule that you'll just look at it based on where the teams are and say we can't win that game. We may be an underdog, but I don't. There's not anyone on our schedule that's out of our range.
I think this is something I've talked to multiple people about the last couple of weeks. I think there's going to be an adjustment period for OU fans and for SEC fans in general. And one of the things that makes college football great is just how catastrophic a loss feels. But I think there's going to be an adjustment period where it may take us a while, but it's going to start feeling more like the NFL where, yeah, a loss really sucks. You hate it. You never want it, but it's not going to feel like the sky is falling because of the expanded playoff and because of just how the SEC and the Big Ten are constructed. I mean,
Yeah.
year in and year out, these schedules are going to be brutal, man.
Yep.
Absolutely brutal. And I don't know what that I don't know what that change looks like from a fan perspective. You're still going to be mad when OU loses. Like, I'm not trying to say that you're not, but I think it's going to start to feel different. Like you go on the road and get beat by a good team. I don't think it's going to feel like the season has just ended right before our eyes, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, and especially after we see how the 12-team playoff kind of sorts itself out, I it's reasonable to suggest that you can come in fourth place in the SEC and make the college football playoff. What does that mean record wise? I'm not sure. 9-3, possibly. I don't know, but I mean, it's not out of the realm that four SEC teams make a 12-team playoff. I mean, a lot of people felt like that's kind of what's going to happen. And I think on a lot of years that could be the case.
I agree. I mean, Mark Schlabach, his post spring top 25 for ESPN, he's got the Sooners at number 18. But kind of to your point of the SEC likely having four teams in this inaugural, is that the right word? Inaugural 12-team college football playoff.
Yeah,
Is that the correct word?
I think so.
Okay. Nailed it. That's how you
Yeah,
get that big time cumulative GPA right there. Big words.
showing it off.
But you look at his top 10. He's got Georgia at 1, Texas at 3, Ole Miss at 6, Bama at 7, Missouri at 8. He's also got LSU at 14 and Tennessee at 15. And he's got the Sooners at 18. So when you've got all of these teams in the top 18, top 15, the odds of four of them making it seem relatively high. But that also paints a picture of, oh my gosh, OU's schedule is once again very difficult. We've got number 3, number 6, number 7, number 8, number 14, and number 15 on the schedule.
Yeah. I how does I guess I just wonder, like, we're in a good position where we're going to have to earn our respect in this conference, which is the best way to do it. And I when you look at that list and there's what's he's got 6 teams that we play in the top 15, like, all things equal, forget the like where we deserve to be, like, where do we stack up with those 6 teams in your opinion?
I think
Like, if you're to like do it a neutral site type
It,
of situation.
it's interesting because he's got Texas at 3. I feel like that's the one program we kind of know how we stack up. We're right there.
Yeah,
I know they just went to the playoff, but we beat them last year. So I feel you know what Texas is. The other ones are kind of the question marks. You have to assume that you're less talented than Alabama, even with Saban retiring and DeBoer taking over.
yep.
They have been the gold standard of college football for a long time now. But as far as Missouri, LSU, Tennessee, and Ole Miss, you got to feel like you are right on their level or better if you're Oklahoma.
I think on a neutral site situation, I think we're better than all those. Just kind of, you know, what I know of the programs, like how some of the dynamics are going to work. I like for Ole Miss. I mean, they've pulled together some really good talent. I I'm not convinced that it's going to just be some seamless transition for all of those guys. And like there's a place where I think you could pull that off and pull it off really nicely. And I just don't think Ole Miss happens to be one of those places that you can do it at the current moment. I could be wrong. I see us. I think we're more talented than than more talented or right there. Like the one that throws you off is Texas. Is like I think we are right there with Texas. I would probably edge us in front of Texas, but at the same time, I don't look at the number 3 ranking next to Texas and believe that to be real. So, like, I'm not sitting here saying we should be number 4. So it's I don't know. It's that's why these things are so interesting, right?
Yeah. One thing that I was looking at Schleybal's list, and one thing that struck me was seeing he's got USC at 25.
Mm-hmm.
As a fan base, are we done with that? Is that over?
I think we've got too much on our plate right
Right?
now to mess with it.
It feels
It'll
like
come
we've
back.
got enough to worry about ourselves. Right? Like I don't know. Are we still devoting energy when it comes to cheering against Lincoln Riley and USC? It
I
was
think
just a random thought I had when I saw the logo on the list. I was like, huh, I wonder where we're at as a fan base on that whole thing.
we've got a lot on our plate, and because of the current situation, I think it's transitioned to probably more of an in-season hate fest going on right now. I could be wrong about that. There may be some people that are daily hate watching USC still. I saw a headline where they've been trying for 2 years to dodge the LSU game. So I know there's probably going to be some Sooner fans have some fun with that one. Stuff like that. I'm sure we'll still be a part of that.
That's fair. I just, I don't think we're going to devote as much energy to our hatred for USC. It's always going to be there, still going to be there. But I don't know. I saw them on the list and I went, oh man, because you've got these 6 teams that you've got to play in the top 15. Can't be worried about USC checking in at 25. We
No,
got to focus on the 6 conference foes that are supposed to be really, really, really good.
yeah. Which I mean, and you mentioned this. It's Texas is the comfortable one on the list, right? Like we know where we sit with them. We play them every year. We know the rosters. You know how they play, know their offense, know their defense. Everyone else, it's just you. What you know is kind of where they're ranked, and look at their schedule, and look at what they did last year. It's hard to know how all of it translates.
Dennis Dodd, out of all the post spring top 25s, he's got OU the highest at number 13. And Dodd wrote, the issue here is the Sooners making progress while also assimilating into the SEC. There's loads of anticipation for new quarterback Jackson Arnold. The offensive line was impacted by the portal. As for incoming talent, Purdue transfer receiver Deion Burks looks like a game breaker. His SEC teams, he's got Georgia at 1, Texas at 4, Bama at 5, Ole Miss at 6, Missouri at 7, LSU at 10, Tennessee at 16, and A&M at 23. So OU's got 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 16 on the conference schedule. Pretty common theme among all these post spring top 25s, Ted, and that is OU's conference schedule is, as it's viewed right now, is absolutely brutal.
It is. It is. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Um, I think it's great. I think the way that it lays out, on the calendar for us is great. Um, I think this will sort itself out to some degree, but like a Missouri, I think they're going to have what I'll call an artificially high ranking all year because I think they're a good, solid team. They're coming off of a 10-win season, uh, finished in the top 10 last year. And you look at their schedule, I it is the exact opposite of what Oklahoma's is. I mean, it is about as easy as you could ask for a conference schedule given the 16 teams that are now in the SEC. What Missouri plays is pretty good for them. It looks great. So I think they're going to be ranked really high. Everyone else, it's just kind of like Bama is interesting to me. I could see a case where Bama could lose a couple of games early and maybe really fall, and we'll see how that pans out. I think LSU, you want to talk about a team that's going to look and feel totally different than they did a year ago. That's LSU. I think LSU could be anywhere from a top 10 program to out of the top 25. It's hard to know. So, and everyone else is just kind of a range in between that.
It's going to be such a fun year, man. The uncertainty, the mystery, whatever you want to call it, it's going to be awesome.